Welcome back, brothers and sisters of Christ. My name is Brianna and I'm back with another video. And for today's video is, why do we honor the word Christian? So just like the topic about the cross, I have heard a lot of people say, like, why do we call ourselves Christians when outsiders and non-believers called us Christians as an insult and as a mockery? You know what I'm saying? Why do we take that name on? And, let's get into the meaning of the word Christian. I was able to find a few definitions, but they were all related to Christ. So it can mean a few things, but pretty much all the same, basically. So, one who believes Christ, Christ's persons, follower of Christ, little Christ, Christ's people. Christ, from Greek Christos, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. Look, I'm trying to teach y'all something, don't even know the pronunciation. Means the anointed one. And then IAN in the Greek Christos means belonging to or identify with. So those letters all put together literally make up the word Christian. The word Christian is mentioned only 3 times in the Bible, right? And I'm going to get into the scriptures that mentions the word Christian. And the first one is Acts chapter 11, verse 26. Piece of hair on me. Okay. 11:26. And it says, and when he found him, he brought him to Antioch. So for a whole year, Barnabas and Saul met with the church and taught great numbers of people. The disciples were called Christians first at Antioch. Child, I don't be knowing. Y'all I'm gonna have to work on the pronunciations of these things, but yeah. So this is when the name was first given to the disciples in the Bible, right? No, the disciples did not come up with the name Christians, nor do we see them calling themselves Christians, but it was later acknowledged by the disciples. You know what I'm saying? So this was given, yes, to outsiders. Really as a mockery, you know what I'm saying? Like, at that time. But why was it given to them? Because they were literally followers of Christ. They were doing the work of the Lord. You know what I'm saying? So we got Acts chapter 26, verse 28 through 29. And it says, then Agrippa said to Paul, do you think that in such a short time you can persuade me to be a Christian? Paul replied, short time or long, I pray to God that not only you, but all who are listening to me today may become what I am, except for these chains. So Paul was acknowledging the word Christian here in this passage. And he didn't necessarily say, like, yeah, I'm a Christian. But the part that stood out to me is when he said, I pray to God that not only you, but all who are listening to me and today may become what I am. In response to when he said, you thought you could persuade me to be a Christian. You know what I'm saying? So neither here or there, whatever he was really saying, he was acknowledging the word Christian. You know what I'm saying? You don't hear Paul saying, oh, don't call me that. That's such a disgrace. You get what I'm saying? Like we see people doing today with the word Christian. So we got the last verse is in 1 Peter. And it's chapter 4, verse 16. And this is actually like the highlighted verse. And it says, and I'm going to do 4:14 through 16. And it says, if you are insulted because of the name of Christ, you are blessed, for the spirit of glory and of God rests on you. If you suffer, it should not be as a murderer or a thief or any kind of criminal or even a meddler. However, if you suffer as a Christian, do not be ashamed, but praise God that you bear that name. So, although we never heard disciples call each other or call themselves Christians, this term was acknowledged. So, common sense would tell you, if Peter is saying here, if you suffer as a Christian, do not be ashamed, but praise God that you bear that name. Why? Because the word Christian is associated with Christ. It's connected to Christ. So if you are facing persecution and hate and all of these things because you identify as a Christian, which is associated with Christ, because they only don't like it because it's associated with Christ. You know what I'm saying? Praise God that you bear that name. Praise God that you are a Christian because it's associated with Christ. You know what I'm saying? So that's literally what Paul is saying here. I mean, Peter, you know, is indicating here. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of where the name came from, everyone knows this name was associated with Christ. So, you know, you hear people say like, oh, it wasn't, you know, God didn't call us that, Jesus didn't call us that, the disciples didn't say, you know what I mean? It does not matter where the name came from. The name is associated with Christ. The name literally means a follower of Christ. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's just so funny because literally like today's day and age, if you say you're a Christian, a lot of negative things come with it. However, do not be ashamed for bearing that name because it is associated with Christ. And it's so interesting how this verse is literally still reality to this day, because they hated Christians then and they hate us now. They persecuted Christians then and they persecute Christians now. You know what I'm saying? People are literally getting persecuted all across the world, across the states, across the countries, for bearing the name Christian. You know what I'm saying? So what Peter said in that verse, it is literally proving itself today. You know what I'm saying? Because if you do your research, they were using the Christian label in biblical times. And that's exactly why I keep calling him Paul. Peter acknowledged the fact, like, if you suffer as a Christian, because the name had already started, like, Christians had already started taking that name on. Although it didn't start from Christians and followers of Christ, it started from outsiders. Christians began to take that name on. Because the thing about it is, it literally means a follower of Christ, and that's what they were. So the fact that Peter said what he said, that alone lets us know that the term was accepted by believers, even the disciples. And to be honest, the word Christian to me was never an insult based on the meaning behind it itself. It literally means follower of Christ, which is what I am. There's no negative attachment to the meaning itself. The issue is, you know, because you hear a lot of people like, oh, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, or, you know, I don't associate myself with Christians. And, you know, that's fine. You don't have to. But a lot of people like that. I noticed the issue is that a lot of people associate the word Christian with the people. Okay? And that's why so many people go out of their way to not label themselves as Christian, because they are not associating the word Christian with Christ, but they're associating the word Christians with humans. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I understand, you know, all Christians are not who and what they proclaim to be. I'm not a Christian because of the people. I'm a Christian because Christ. You know what I'm saying? Which is the same thing people do with church, but that's a whole nother story. You know what I'm saying? We have to stop basing things off people and base it off Christ. The root meaning of Christian is a follower of Christ. So you can't insult me by calling me a Christian, because I am a Christian, which is a follower of Christ. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it never was like an insult in my eyes. Y'all thought Christian was a mockery, a shame, a disgrace, an insult. But now we bear that name proudly for generations and for generations and for generations to come. So anyway, thanks for the label. You know what I'm saying? Thanks for the label, the people in Antioch, because y'all created something big. It's a lot of Christians out here now. And this is also another one of those things where they were using it for evil, for bad. You know, they intended this to be like a bad thing, an insult, a mockery, like, oh, we're going to call y'all Christians. But God once again used it for his glory. God once again turned it around for his good. And that's what a lot of people don't like to believe and understand with a lot of things when it comes to the Bible and stuff. They like to stay rooted in the old. You know what I'm saying? Like, the example that I use, just like, you know, where the name originally came from. It does not matter where the name came from. This is used to glorify God now. You know what I'm saying? Do you have to identify as a Christian? No. But what we're not going to do is act like it's something negative when it's not. Okay? Although we didn't hear the disciples call themselves Christians, they never made a big deal about it as well. You know what I'm saying? You never hear them make a big deal out of being called a Christian and like, oh, don't call me that, and I don't want to be associated with that, because it was not an insult to them. You know what I'm saying? And they literally acknowledged the name because it became accepted. So why do y'all make a big deal out of being called a Christian? Like, that's something that I just will never understand. You know, and I had seen this comment on someone's YouTube, and this girl was just bitter about people identifying as Christians. Like, she's going back and forth with people in the comments because they call themselves Christians, and I'm just like, what is the big deal? Like, she's saying pagans gave us that name and all this stuff. And again, it does not matter who started the name. We like the name. We like what the name stood for. It represented what we stood for, and we took it. It's really as simple as that. It's really not that deep. And I just hate when people like want to argue and be difficult about things that do not matter at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, being a Christian, not being a Christian, it's not going to lead you to hell either way. You know what I'm saying? The only thing that matters is saving souls and salvation. Like, I hate when people bicker about things that really don't boil down to your soul. You know what I'm saying? So the name is associated with Christ, not the enemy. That's another thing. So what is the issue? They acting like the name origin originally belonged to the enemy or something, and we just took it and stuff like that. Like, no. The name always represented Christ. It always stood for Christ. So, you know, some people make a big deal out of anything that's religious, that's spiritual, and it's annoying because it's really unnecessary. Like I said, if it doesn't have anything to do with our souls, then we have to stop bickering about this stuff. Like, seriously. But I just personally don't like the fact and the idea that people try to make it seem like we're, you know, it's wrong to be a Christian. You know what I'm saying? It's not wrong. Religion is not wrong. Being in a religion is not wrong. Claiming a religion is not wrong. What is wrong is when you make it your identity. What is wrong is when you're not living the way that you're supposed to live within the religion. You know what I'm saying? That's the stuff that's wrong. What's wrong is if you're idolizing the religion itself or the name itself versus Jesus Christ. My relationship with Jesus Christ is always going to come before being a Christian. But I'm still going to be a Christian at the end of the day unless the Lord himself told me not to. So, you know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. But again, I feel like the biggest point also is like how I mentioned the disciples never made a big deal out of being called a Christian. So that's why I don't understand why people today make it such a big deal being called a Christian or being associated with a Christian. You know what I'm saying? Like, they never made it a big deal. That's one of the things that people don't mention in the Bible. They say, oh, well, the disciples never called themselves Christians. Yeah, they didn't, but they also didn't make a big deal about the fact that other people were calling them Christians. And they also acknowledged the fact that people started calling themselves Christians down the line, you know, as Peter, you know, referenced being, you know, if you suffer as a Christian, you know what I'm saying? So they did not bicker. They did not argue about this. They did not say that this is prohibited. Like, we should not be saying this. We shouldn't go by this. They, you know what I'm saying? So while they didn't call themselves that, they also did not say it was wrong to be a Christian. And if it was, it would have been mentioned in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? They were acknowledging the word Christian. So if we are not supposed to be associated with Christian or be a Christian, that would have been something that was mentioned. But you don't ever see them scold or turn away or deny or, you know, disown the Christian name. So, you know, that is why we honor the name Christian, because it is associated with Christ. It means a follower of Christ, little Christ, however you want to put it. Anything associated with Jesus Christ, I'm involved in. You know what I'm saying? So that is like one of the strong indicators, like, you know who I serve. Because when people say like they're spiritual, you know, you never know what God they really serve at that. So Christian is like the number one. Like, if you hear Christian, you know, I am a follower of Jesus Christ. You know, people just say God, or people say I'm spiritual. No, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I am a Christian. This is my label. So when you hear that name, you already know what I stand for. You know what I'm saying? It's really just a label. And, you know, people like, nowadays, they hate being labeled as things. And to me, it's just like, I'm representing who and what I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm a woman, I'm going to address myself as a woman. I want to be called a woman because that's what I am. If I'm a Christian, I want to be addressed as a Christian because I'm a follower of Christ. That's what I am. You know what I'm saying? If you're a lawyer, you want to be addressed as a lawyer because that's what you are. If you're a doctor, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know why every time it falls down to religion, people are like, don't want to label. And they're like acting like it's like a horrible thing to be labeled as a certain religion. You know what I'm saying? You gonna know who I stand for. And you're gonna know by me being a Christian. Okay? So that is why we honor the word Christian. That's why we took on the name Christian. There's additional research that you can do behind the scenes. Like, because I did it. I just didn't feel like putting it all in this video. But yes, so if this word is not used for somebody else, remember I'm telling y'all this because I love y'all. God bless.